people to subscribe for Jesus sounds like a pretty good marketing strategy until a demon shows up. I'm reviewing The Cleansing Hour. Hey Twisted People, it's your Twisted Woman here, Chauncey K. Robinson, and today I am doing a spoiler-free review of The Cleansing Hour, which can be found on the streaming service Shudder. Directed by Damien Levesque. Another successful exorcism streamed online, or so it seems. Can the Exorcist, quote-unquote, producer and their team bring the ratings up? Ratings skyrocket when a real demon gets involved. So I really love the idea of this plot. I think as someone who does YouTube, you've seen it before. This isn't the first time that we've seen a play on the social media influencer, YouTube person who does a certain gimmick, whether it be someone who's in the horror or someone who does this, and then they get involved in something and things get crazy. But I think this is my first time seeing a plot that involves something that you usually probably don't see at all of a YouTube person, which is a online priest who performs exorcisms online. It's like stream exorcisms. I think what a plot like this really depends on is the characters involved. I think when you have it so that you have this priest who's a little bit of an egomaniac when it comes to doing exorcisms online, and his producer friend, and they have this, well-known YouTube channel and blah, 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 or, streaming channel. I don't think they actually said YouTube. And what that does, you got to make it so that the characters aren't necessarily insufferable. Even the egomaniac, cocky priest in this regard. And I think the actors do a good job in not making the characters insufferable. And I actually really enjoyed the fact that these characters were gray characters. No character in this movie was completely great and touched when it comes to any kind of darkness or, bad or negative feelings. And no character was completely, evil or perfect in any kind of regard. They all kind of toed the line that most humans do. And I think you really needed to do that in this kind of thing because, sometimes when you have these movies that are self-aware when it comes to what they're doing commentary on or incorporating specifically with the social media influencer thing, which is a big thing to do and mimic in films and TV. I think sometimes some of these films and TV shows, they make them really insufferable. They make them like just really over the top to the point where it's like, okay, I can't go on this journey with any of these characters because they all kind of suck. That's not the most, intellectual term to use, but yes, I'm going to say that sometimes, they make it so all the characters suck. And I'm a real believer that if you're going to tell a story and you want someone to sit with a character or multiple characters for an hour or more, any kind of time, you've got to make it so even if I don't love this character, I at least care enough to see where their journey goes. And I think this film does a solid job in creating that in the three main characters, more so the two main characters when it comes to the brotherhood, the brohood of the priest and his producer friend, who are like best friends since Catholic school. I think the message of this film is that the world has become super desensitized to violence, to tragedy and things, to the point that if they are watching an exorcism online, they can't tell the difference of the truth or the fake news when it comes to what they're watching, to the point where they can see people getting tortured and stuff, and it's like, yeah, I'm still going to participate in this poll. Yeah, I shouldn't call the cops at all. Kind of like that. And I think that's what it was going towards. That and the idea that everything is so shared, maybe overshared when it comes to the world. I mean, just think about it. There's so many shows on YouTube and stuff that are, and online in general. I'm not just talking about YouTube. I'm talking about Twitter, all of that, where people are sharing things where you're like, you can share that, but should you share that? Right? And so I think this movie kind of plays on that, because who would think to live stream an exorcism. But that's where we're at, right? It's this idea that we we live stream everything else. We record everything else. Why wouldn't we live stream an exorcism, right? So it plays on that idea of that's where we're heading in the world. And I ain't mad at it because I think it makes a lot of sense and they probably aren't too far off. Now, that's the message I think that the movie was trying to convey. The question is, in their intention of this message, did they actually follow through in conveying it as well as it could have been? And I actually think it did. I think at times it maybe shifted a little too much into melodrama of certain things with certain relationships. And I was like, oh no, that's a bit distracting. We're dealing with deeper stuff than that. But I felt like they had to kind of throw that in certain parts without giving spoilers in order to move the plot along, which is fine. It had been doing so well until that part though. But that part kind of comes towards the third act of it, but then it gets itself right back again. But I do think that given the message that I think this movie was trying to go for, I do think that it actually achieved that in interesting ways. When you see the audiences, the viewers, the subscribers, how they're responding to watching this situation unfold and how real it is and how suddenly it's not just for likes. Suddenly they're not stopping in the middle of throwing the holy water and telling you, hey guys, subscribe. By the way, you should subscribe to my channel as well if you like these videos and these reviews. Just throwing that in there. There's no demon gonna show up yet. So yeah, I think it did its job. And I think it did actually very well in conveying that. I appreciated the scares and the way this film was set up. It's a very straightforward film. There's not a whole bunch of sets or anything like that. There's probably like 3 major places of action that happen. The set of the streaming channel that they have, an apartment and an alleyway leading up to that place. The all-time one that most people talk about is The Exorcist. And it's debatable on whether or not that's dated, but it was the first of its kind. So in my opinion, although I didn't find it scary when I had watched it, I could see why it was scary to a lot of people. And I say that as a person who is spiritual, as a person who does believe in those sort of things. Because sometimes I say that and people are like, well, if you don't believe in that sort of stuff, but I actually do, and I still didn't find it that scary. So people compare a lot of things to that movie, to the point where all the movies that came after that, we're trying to kind of get the one up. How can we make this scarier? Because everyone's seeing the twisting head and things like that, to the point where it can kind of be overdone. When it comes to the effects, right? The effects could be really CGI, or they're just overly gross, or they're just kind of like you're watching and you're just really uncomfortable more than scared. And I think this film actually did a good job of not overdoing it. It had all the tropes maybe that we've seen of exorcism, but because of the plot, because of how it's happening, where it's happening, what the demon is saying, that is what makes it the creepiest. My biggest pro when it comes to this movie is the commentary. I think it was an ingenious idea to have a plot like this, and I think it did well in how it conveyed it in the story. My biggest con or negative when it comes to this film is that it somewhat lags in the middle, and it takes a while to get to a certain reveal. It's not the only reveal, but it takes a while to get to a certain reveal. And I think it landed when it finally hit, but because they drew it out so long, it kind of gave the audience, I think, too much time to figure it out before it happened. 2 trigger warnings for this movie are child abuse and suicide. I think the emotional carnage you're going to feel when watching this movie is judging social media and maybe how you interact with it, and what we engage in versus what we don't, what we're willing to witness from people online and where we don't draw the boundaries and maybe where we should, if you want to get that deep about it. And if you don't, it's a very cool take on an Exorcist movie. My twisted final grade for The Cleansing Hour is an A. Okay, Twisted People, so that is my spoiler-free review of The Cleansing Hour, which can be found on the horror streaming service Shudder. Check it out. If you like this review and you are curious about how they do exorcism live stream and give you holy water merch, oh yeah, which it was very cool, of the film, check it out. Let me know your thoughts, and let me know your thoughts on exorcism movies. Do you think the effects matter, or do you think it's more about the context in which the exorcism or the story is taking place? Let me know, comment down below, and also be sure to subscribe so that you are the first to know when I post my videos. Thanks for watching. Let's get creepy together.